from the Excelsiors, we go to Dan Teat. Good morning, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you guys?
We're fantastic. You know, we just got to reminisce there a little bit about a bunch of soccer, and I was just saying...
And lacrosse, too.
Soccer. Lacrosse, that if you talk to someone in St. Catharines and you start talking about Doug Favell, someone, if not almost 50% of those people, depending on their age group, they might talk about him being a great lacrosse player as much as he was a hockey player.
Yeah, I think, when you talk about guys like that, some of the greats that played our game obviously have a lot of hockey roots in their background. And when I was young, and most of the guys I played with were young, we all played multi-sports, and hockey was our winter sport. And we did, summer was lacrosse, and hockey was in the winter. And those two seem to coincide with each other, and I think it made us better for each of the sports that we played.
Dan, I think it makes it better for everything, and I think that it's one of the things that I talk about with former athletes, and including, as I said, Gary Roberts. I think Joey Nieuwendyk played a little bit. Mike Keenan back in the day in those Whitby, Brooklyn, another big area, then out in Peterborough. I think that we are kind of missing the mark a little bit, Dan. I think when we start looking at our kids, especially in the hockey world, and we make them play year-round, I think they need other sports. I think it's good for them on different levels and for different things, but I think just being a one-sport kid, I don't think it's a great idea.
No, I agree, and I think what happens is, people get caught up in what they want to end up in their sport, or how they want to end up, or where they want to go with it, and that kind of gets curtailed towards the other sports. But I agree in the fact that multi-sport is the way to go. It keeps you focused on a couple of different things, and the year-round sport is tough because you're putting all your focus or all your eggs in one basket, and you have no idea what you could excel at another sport. So I think it's important to encourage, especially the young kids, they play more sports and not get all tied up into one.
Dan, let's talk about this upcoming season for your Brampton club. Talk about what kind of roster you're looking at as you head to training camp and the season ahead. And obviously, we're talking about all these other places, but let's not forget Brampton having lacrosse in its area for well over 100 years. It's one of the founding areas of not only Ontario but Canada for the sport. So I guess their rise to prominence this year would obviously be a big benefit for the area, not only for your team, but for what it means to the city itself.
Well, as far as roster goes, I think what we've done a very good job of so far is keeping our core together from the past 2 years, but we're adding quite a bit of youth from our Junior A program and through some draft picks that we picked up from a couple of other sectors. We're going to be extremely young when it comes to the major series lacrosse group this year. We're going to be the youngest team, I would imagine, and we're looking for young commitment and speed. And I think that we've got all of that stuff mixed in with our veterans from last year and the new rookies coming in this year. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. We're going to be fast. Obviously, like I said, we're going to be young, and there's still a couple of teams that I don't think are ready to relinquish their title yet. So it's going to be an uphill battle, but one that our group is going to be ready and prepared for.
Now, the area that you would pull these guys in from, so are we talking about programs like in Caledon? Is that where some of these kids would come from?
There may be a few from Caledon. Generally what happens is the drafts we're allowed to protect 4 of our own players from our Junior A program in Brampton. And the draft essentially is made up of players from Junior A centers that don't have a major team, so they can't get protected by anybody, so they are draft eligible.
Right.
So you might see a Caledon guy or two sprinkled in there.
I think Georgetown, too. I think, is it Georgetown, Mike Hancock and those guys up there, would there be players from that area?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We actually drafted Matt Hodgins, who played 5 years of Junior B in Halton, or Georgetown, as you want to say, and also played some junior A for us in Brampton for the last couple of years. So he was one of the top Georgetown players coming out of their program last year, and we scooped him up as soon as we could.
Now, for those listening here for the first time, I mean, Dan, our radio stations really only existed for about 4.5 months or so. Certainly that's how long we've been here. And as we get higher profile, we know that we have new people listening to yourself and hearing about the league and maybe have not gone to a game. Maybe they're not even familiar with some of the teams that you play. So for those uninitiated to what that is, where do you play? When are the games generally? And who are some of the teams that you're playing?
Home nights are Thursday nights in Brampton. They are at Memorial Arena. We have turf installed on that floor now. So
really?
It's actually fantastic. We're hoping, I hope the wrong people don't hear this. We're hoping that turf stays in there all year round now, so we can run programs in the winter. It has been used for hockey in the past. Memorial Arena is a old, historic, amazing arena that has a lot of tradition and a lot of memories in there, obviously, too. And so we'll be playing, there's Peterborough, Brooklyn, Six Nations, Cobourg, Brampton, and Oakville. And Oakville is probably about 3 or 4 years old now. So they'd be the newest team coming into the league. Cobourg's been around a couple of years, so those are the 6 teams involved in the major series in Ontario.
So the Oakville team, they play out of Jamie's facility, I'm guessing?
They play out of the track, yes.
Yeah.
And I believe their nights are Monday nights.
Well, it's great news, Dan. I'll tell you, I'll be going to some of the games because I love local lacrosse. I think the sport is and always has been, so exciting. It also is to the level of athlete that has to play it. You can't really mail it in. That's really hard to do in lacrosse, and it's nonstop action. And these guys are, they work their guts out. They're in great shape. I think it's fantastic entertainment. I always have.
Oh, 100%. And I think one of the things that some non-traditional fans or new fans, one of the things that we want them to know is when you go to a major series lacrosse game, whether it's Oakville, Peterborough, Brampton, or Brooklyn, generally those teams are made up of NLL players. Those guys play summer lacrosse as well, and sometimes it's because they've grown up playing in that city. Sometimes it's because they want to keep their skills and levels up for their winter season in the NLL, but you're essentially at times going to watch some NLL, somewhat all-star rosters play against each other in the summertime.
We just so we're on Twitch now, Dan, which is a televised version of what we do. It's pretty big. It's owned by Amazon. We just started 2 days. Just saw someone here, our friend, saying you got to do a promo with the team for going to the games. I think it's a great idea. I think we probably should do that.
Absolutely. We can use all the fans we can get.
Free beer. Try that one. Do free beer, because I know that's a big
The one thing I will say is they are cheap at the arena. It's a Thursday night at Memorial Arena. We do have we call it a beer garden.
Yeah.
You can sit up in the concourse and watch the game and have a beer. And I believe that you can take the beer to your seats now. We've got that license.
Wow.
So that seems to help with some of our fans.
Yeah, probably. And I was just talking about my cousin. You might have played against him because he didn't play that often. But do you remember Chris Kinnear? No Fear Kinnear. Do you know who that is?
I do know who that is. I'm not positive he played in the East, though.
No, he
was Victoria guy, I
correct.
believe.
Yeah, he's still out there. He's got a bunch of Popeye stores that he does. But occasionally they'd bring him up because they want him to go and fight somebody.
I know he's a guy that I played with who would have been, considered the heavyweight champ for a long time, Jeff Schneider.
Yeah.
I think Jeff and Chris had a couple of real good kills where, would have knocked out any lesser man.
Hey, Dan, before we let you go, we should remind our audience that your season starts on Sunday, May the 26th, in Brampton against Peterborough, which is a pretty good rival of yours at Memorial Arena. So tickets are available now and, of course, at the door, and we wish you nothing but luck, and we'll check in with you every once in a while throughout the season.
Thanks very much for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.